Hi, my name is Cora Louise. I'm an artist and today I want to start a new project. The project is to establish better branding for my work so I can achieve consistency without sacrificing any experimentation in my art. A couple of days ago I watched a Hannah Witten video on her More Hannah channel. It was called Behind the Scenes of My Rebrand. I love the behind the scene processes of anything creative, so I found it fascinating. But it also made me realise that I'd never put deliberate effort into branding myself or my work. I've struggled with consistency as an artist. My online presence and offline creativity has been sporadic and transitory for a few years now. I often want to refresh my work, try new mediums or styles, or to have several creative endeavours running at once. And although that is not inherently a negative thing, in fact I think it is very positive to crave expansion and diversity within your art, but I do know that there is a pressure from social media and important for consistency to gain interest and to hold engagement on your art as well. So consistency is very important within social media now, the way that we do now spread our artwork, but consistency has always been important. It's the way that we establish who we are as a creative, but there is more of an emphasis on it now than ever through social media, which is why people are always desperate to find their style so that they have something unique that is theirs and then can become consistent and therefore have consistent engagement on their work. But I've been thinking that perhaps with branding, creating that solid, constant base will allow for variation and occasionally novelty, without it ever feeling really off-brand and not of your wheelhouse, because you already have that base that is uniquely yours. So as I've said, it's not something I've thought about a lot. I'm not necessarily a business person, but I know I need to be more business minded. So it's something that I want to delve into to see how it goes. And I've established some areas of interest that I may need to develop, which include colour, font, doodles, profile pictures / banners, a logo, my website, and 3 words, which I'll go in depth about a bit later. So those are the basic categories I've got down for now that I want to have a look at, and I'm going to go away now and write down some initial ideas, some initial thoughts that I have, and then I'll get back to you later with what I've thought about. So this is future editing Cora, who's just realised that the very inexpensive microphone she uses is surprisingly not reliable at all, and is making a constant clicking sound all the way through this footage that I just can't put you through. So I'm going to quickly talk over whilst I show you the results of my initial ideas and what my thoughts were at the time. I created a very basic and sketchy worksheet to fill in with the categories I'd already established before, and went about filling them in with any ideas that came to mind without worrying about their quality really. This step is to force myself to get the ball rolling because it's always difficult to begin a new project. I went into this expecting the majority of what I create in my initial ideas to be unsuccessful, but to be inspiring and to pinpoint what does and doesn't work, so to make the next steps easier. So let's begin with colour. I have a vague colour palette which I've always been drawn to within art, and that's a lot of reds combined with blues and greens. Opposite sides of the colour wheel, but I usually like it slightly off from the proper contrasting colours, which is a red and a green. I usually like to go into the more blue side, but that's the combination I usually like, and I like that against a simpler, more grey or yellow undertoned background to make them stand out. So I knew I wanted something along those lines, but I also recently visited the Walker Art Gallery in Liverpool, where I saw and adored this painting. I wanted to strip it of its colours and take them home with me, which is basically what I've done, as this colour palette is very inspired by that painting. It has the reds, blues and greens I love, and the yellow undertoned background, and they're all balanced so beautifully, and I thought this was a great place to begin with my colour palette. Next we have font. I like the idea of having two contrasting fonts, one that's more vintage and serious and another more playful, that they could be used aside each other, hopefully with a nice contrast and not clashing. I've always loved the Hiragino Mincho Pro N font, which I stumbled across on Procreate, and usually use that for any writing pieces if needed. So my first idea was to create a font inspired by that. I am planning to make my own font, as I want something unique to me and my brand instead of using something just default, just because I think it'll create something a little more specific or look a little more creative in those smaller details across my branding. So also just to have fun with it, I wanted to create something just for my own. And then I also wanted the more playful font, which was much more difficult to produce. I knew I wanted it clear and readable, but also playful, and with a hand-drawn vibe. So I ended up with these two that, however, feel a little too childish for what I'm wanting. I'm definitely swaying towards the first font at this moment, so we'll see how that develops going forward. So the third category is logo. I went in with absolutely no ideas for a logo, and I've spent a lot of time scrolling for inspiration. I've always struggled with creating logos, as I've often created ones which are momentary and only fit for the style of that specific time I'm in, and as I've mentioned, I often want to try new things and move on quickly, so these logos I've created aren't lasting long and don't fit with what I'm wanting to portray for very long. So here I've quickly sketched whatever has come to my mind and tried to create a small variation just to force myself out of the confines of my comfort. This one is a combination of my artist signature and my name, which I quite kind of liked how it worked, but I'm not sure if it's very readable or if that's obvious as my signature. This I tried to incorporate a face into the logo, which I don't think necessarily works too well. This was my favourite by the end, as I felt it included all elements of my work, my love for nature and portraiture, but with a quirky twist as well. And finally, this was a second attempt at the face within the name, which has come across a little eerie really. I think it looks more like for a horror artist. I don't know if it's how the eyes are piled up on top of each other or how it's sketched. Something looks a little creepy to me, which I kind of like, but it's not working for me personally, I don't think. So I'm not really feeling fond of any except for this one. So I will probably focus on that one going forward and see how I can develop it. So we'll see how we go going forward with that. Next we have doodles. What I mean by doodles are the little icons and illustrations which I'll be using throughout my website and across any other platforms or socials, so that small details like a little Instagram icon or a little speech bubble, etc., look unique to me and in my style, and harmonises all of my platforms across the internet because they all have the same elements and details in them. However, I became a little defeated here as I didn't know what I wanted and felt nothing was working. I forced some small doodles so I have a base to bounce off later, but ultimately decided that other areas needed to be grown first before I could see how these would fit in. So these are probably one of the last things I will work on, and so I can let them be inspired by the rest of my branding. So that'll be much later that I start working on that. Profile picture. So I've had this moon face I illustrated for quite some time now, across like Instagram and YouTube. It was created at the beginning of the change in my work from digital to more traditional 2 or 3 years ago. However, I feel my work has developed since then and it perhaps isn't a great portrayal anymore, especially as an umbrella for all the work I want to create. I need something which isn't very specific to one piece of art or one style, but instead allows for variety. I do like using art for my profile picture. I've done that a lot. I haven't had a photo for a profile picture for a long time now. I like that it shows I'm an artist before you click on my profile. So I've thought of possibly continuing down that route and using my new moon face illustration, or perhaps another face from my art, or creating a new painting or illustration. However, it may also be useful to be more personal and put myself at the top of my page rather than a piece of work which will not accurately portray my interest in several types of creation. So perhaps like the creator instead of a creation. It's just something to think about going forward. I'm going to test and trial some of these images on my Instagram as profile pictures and see how they feel and what they look like against my art. So finally is 3 words, which I told you I would delve deeper into. So the idea of 3 words is to select 3 words that will help establish a feeling I want to portray with my branding. So 3 words in particular allows for variety, but also narrows down too many possible choices so there aren't too many inspirations at once. The branding really should be clear as to what it is and not having too many influences. Narrowing things down will make it unique to you. So the plan was to choose 3 words to describe my branding basically. However, this was far more difficult than I thought it would be. As you can see, I obviously ended up with way more than 3 words. But some were leaning more towards my art style, whilst others were towards the video content I want to create on YouTube. It was very helpful actually to break down my work and my thoughts and see what I'm actually most interested in creating and what vibe I'm trying to go for. However, I'm not really sure how to go about this category. I did colour code the words into the art style or YouTube categories and did only end up with 3 for my YouTube videos. However, it still doesn't really help to explain the creative style I want to go for, but does help me to understand what kind of content I want to create. I don't really end up focusing too much on this category going forward, and I don't think I mention it again accidentally. There were so many other things to be focusing on. But I did often refer back to it when developing going forward, and also for writing my bio on my website. And I do think this is something I would like to consider further, so perhaps I can be more purposeful with how I create and brand. But for now, it was helpful to establish some themes of interest. So yeah, like I said, I don't really talk about it too much more in this video, but I think it's a great task to do, whether that's for your art style or for your branding or anything that you're trying to create, just to understand what's in your brain better. Some of these words I grabbed from artists whose work I enjoyed and elements of the work that I'm trying to portray in my own work, like the photographer Gregory Crewdson. I really enjoy the vibe he creates in his work. So reading about how he talks about his work and how he explains it makes me realise what the vibe is that he's creating that I'm also trying to create in my own work. So if there's an artist that you really like and it's more the vibe of the work that you're trying to go for but you're not sure to explain it, listening to them talk about their work will help you understand that and perhaps understand what you were trying to create with your own work. So that's it. That's my initial ideas worksheet. Hopefully the mic is okay going forward in my continuing footage. It seems to be from what I've seen so far. I may have to buy a new mic. But I really recommend doing this. It was quite fun to do just to get some ideas out and to understand what I'm trying to go for a bit better. But now I'm going to send you back to myself in the past for day 2 of my branding. So it's the morning of day 2. Today's focus is developing the initial ideas yesterday. I'm not going to know for sure if anything that I've drafted will really work unless I clean it up and see if the different elements work together or not. So that's the plan for today, is to begin that process. And the first task that I'm going to focus on is font. I found a website called Calligrapher, which I think I have used many moons ago for an old font. It looks very familiar, so I think it is the same one, and if I remember, it was very simple to use, and it's also free for what I'm going to use it for anyway. So I'm going to use that to test out the fonts, to see if I like them individually, and then also to see if I like them together, to see if they have a nice harmonization or if they contrast too much. So we'll experiment a bit with that first. I also want to try drafting some new logos perhaps, and cleaning some logos, and then half cleaning a few logos, perhaps some of the ones from yesterday or some new ones that I'm going to draft today. I'm struggling a bit with the logo, so I think I just need to clean a few, see how I feel about it, perhaps get some response from it. And then I'm thinking of drafting what my website could possibly look like, so I can start incorporating the colours, the font, the logo, just the general vibe that I'm trying to achieve, all in one go, because the website will be everything that I'm drafting right now in one place, so it needs to look nice together. So I think that is the perfect place to see if everything's working or not. So I'll just probably draft that in Procreate rather than in the website editor. It'll be easier, I can move things around quicker and use different layers, etc., rather than be restricted by the website editor. So we'll have a go at that as well, hopefully. But first I'm going to try out the fonts on Calligrapher and see if they work. So let's have a go at that. So there's a font that I really like that I use a lot on Procreate, which is Hiragino Mincho Pro N. That is what I've used as my base for this font. On Calligrapher, you simply download the alphabet that you're acquiring, so obviously mine is the English alphabet. You download this worksheet, and then in each box you put in your letter, etc. So I filled each box with a letter from that font. I really like this font, but I usually draw over it and use it as inspiration. So I'm getting the elegant vintage literary feel of this font, but in a sketchy style. So like what I usually do, I'm going to do now, I'm going to lower the opacity of the font that I've just typed in to each box. And now I'm not sure which pen I'm going to use. I usually like to use a 6B pencil under the sketching category. The only problem with that is if I'm using the 6B pencil to draw or write anything on top of video or photo, it doesn't show up too well because it's not a solid colour. Perhaps instead I will use one of the inking pens, perhaps Mercury, and I'm going to draw over with that. I'll try Mercury out first, and if I don't like it I'll try something else. And then I may do my other font or another 2 fonts on here, and then I'll put them all into Calligrapher and see how they come out and try using them. So I'm going to draw over these fonts first and then we'll see how we go. So I've finished drawing some fonts. You saw the one that I talked about before that was based off a font already within Procreate that I drew over the top of to create a more sketchy feel to it, not so clean and straight and solid. I wanted it to have a little bit of edge to it. And then I also, oh, here we go. Build font, I'm guessing. Ooh, I don't know. Or what shall I name it? I'm just going to name it Font 1 for now because I've got no imagination this morning. We'll come back to the name later, it doesn't really matter. So let's build that. But as I was saying, I've done a few other fonts, kind of just messed around a bit, so doing nothing too serious, but we'll have a go at them as well. And if I'm not happy, I'll experiment a little bit more. But here they are. They're not anything really unique, but I like that kind of novel font that looks very clear and literary a little, but it's with a little bit of a sketchy edge to it. This one's a little more playful. I'm not sure what I think about it yet. Add characters to your font. Oh no. Actually, yes, I do remember it saying that you can only edit or produce one font at a time. Can I delete? Oh no. Okay, so let's quickly delete all these and start again because I've already saved other fonts, and if I haven't done properly I can very quickly redo it. Okay, that was quicker than I thought. So let's upload that template again. Add characters to your font, build font, font 2. That's annoying me. Oh no. Okay. Has something not worked, or is it just taking a while to download? Okay, let's just download it and see what it looks like. I think it's just not showing up properly for some reason. It looks... Oh, did I miss the numbers somewhere? I didn't think about numbers. Oh no. I didn't even think about numbers. Right, I'll go back and do that after for each font, because the numbers weren't included on this worksheet. I like that one. That's pretty... Oh no, I think it's chopped off. Okay, so I'll have to go back and edit them as well. So if you're going to do this, you have to be aware that if it's too far down for some reason, it's going to chop it off, even though it's within the box. Let's try it out anyway. So I've airdropped it onto my iPad, and it straight away comes up with the choice to put it straight into Procreate. So, oh, there it is. So let's see what this looks like. I really like that. I know it's simple. The sketchiness isn't too obvious. I think it's very subtle, but I like that. I think you can tell slightly that it's not the usual font. You probably can't from through the screen as much, but just have this little sketchiness that I really like. I don't want the things around the art that I create to take away from the art that I'm creating, if you know what I mean. So like on a website or wherever, you don't want personally the writing to be too bold. One, because the focus is meant to be on the art, but two, because I don't want it to clash with anything within my art either. So I think this should work quite well for me. So there's that one. Let's try another font, and then I'll duplicate this so we can just see what it looks like in different fonts. So let's change the font to font 2. Okay, I quite like that actually. Oh, I like that more than I thought I would. Font 3 is pretty much the same but a little tilted, which is quite nice as well. And then this is the messy font that I'm really sure I'm not gonna like. Font 4. Yeah, that really isn't for me. But I really like the other 3, I think. Do these work together or are they too different? Let's turn off this one because I know I don't want that one. And what about those 2 together? Now I'm not sure. I think I'll be able to tell better when I'm thinking maybe I should be redoing this one and it's more obviously not the font that it began as. But yeah, I'm reasonably happy with that. I'll test it with the website maybe a bit later. So I'll leave it like that for now, and I'll move on to the logos after I've had a little bit of something to eat because I'm hungry. So yeah, reasonably happy. Not sure if I might need to go back and redo some things. I know I need to do numbers. I may need to redo this, which is slightly upsetting because it took me the longest to do out of all of them. We'll see where we go from there. Okay, I'm gonna have some lunch.
Oh, see, that's a dance, kind of a wiggle.
So I thought I'd get out the house and do a quick catch up from here just to get some fresh air and to move to another seat because I have been sat in the same place staring at the same screen for too long now. After this I'm going to go for a walk, maybe go get a drink somewhere in a nice little cafe. But I thought before I'd go I'd quickly catch you up on what I've done so far. I hope you can hear me alright. We've got a lot of lovely birds around here but they're very noisy, but hopefully it won't be too much of a distraction. So to begin with, I developed some of the logos that I drafted yesterday. I ended up not drafting any new ones because when I opened up the ones from yesterday, which just shows sometimes you need to sleep on things, I found that I wasn't as horrified as I thought I'd be by them. So that's my cat. What are you doing up there? Anyway, which just shows that sometimes you need to sleep on things and come back to them when you're feeling a little more refreshed and less tired, especially if you've been staring at the same thing for a long time. I feel like you lose interest in what you were working on and you need new eyes to look at it. So the first logo I did, which is the one that stood out to me most when I brought up the drafts from yesterday, was this one. Sorry, my cats are fighting. It's much more distracting out here than it is inside the house to film. So the first logo I developed today was this one. As soon as I opened up the drafts from yesterday, I was drawn to it immediately. So I quickly cleaned that up and then was very happy with it, so forced myself to do a couple more just to see how they go, and not just to land on one straight away and keep to it. I wanted to experiment a bit more still to make sure I was doing the right thing. So I did 2 more. I did this one and then this one. So then I put them together on one page and wrote down positives and negatives for each logo, so I could understand why things were or weren't working for me. So for instance, the one on the left, which is very much like a signature, although I quite liked it. I liked all of these really in some way. In the end, I did feel like it was a little too serious for the work that I make. It wasn't really unique enough or quirky, doesn't really tell any story, doesn't really show the vibe that I'm trying to portray in my work. Things I did like about it was that it was quite elegant, it was quite artistic. I think it looked like a logo for someone who is an artist. I also liked it including my signature, so the big curve on the left hand side is my signature and then it goes into my name at the top of the bottom. So I just quite like it. I was quite proud of how I managed to incorporate the signature and my name into the same thing, but I think overall it doesn't encapsulate what I'm trying to portray, and that's what a logo needs to do. The one on the right I liked because it was quirky and creative. I think again it showed that it was a logo for something artistic. I thought it stood out and that it was unique. However, I just get really creepy vibes from it. I feel like it looks like a logo for some kind of horror artist, but I do like the creativity behind it. I like how I used the nose for the Al in Louise and the eyes for the O's, etc. I do like it. I don't think it really represents my art, and I don't think it really is clear and clean enough for what I want. The last one, the middle one, which is the one I was talking about earlier, the first one I cleaned today, the one that I was drawn to straight away. I think it's really clear to read. I think it shows a bit of quirkiness, shows creativity. I think it's interesting, just really like the vibe of it. The only issue I had was it wasn't as general as the other two. It was a bit more specific on what it was portraying. However, I separated it from the other logos to have a look at it by itself. I found that it had all different elements of what I was trying to portray in my work. Although I do think it's simple in a lot of ways. One of the things I really like about it is the simple lines, but it very clearly shows the image. So I really like the simplicity of it. But does it represent my work as a whole? Can I use it on anything that I'm going to create? That's what I'm not completely sure of at the moment. I do really like it. Maybe I should create some other renditions of it to see what that looks like, just to change it up a bit. Maybe editing it a bit will make it feel better and more general for my work. But at the moment I really like it, and I'm going to try and get some feedback from other people to see what they think. So finally I had to go at a first draft for my website. To be honest, I spent a long time messing about on this in Procreate. I thought Procreate would be easier than doing it in the website editor because I'm really not sure what I'm doing yet. It's just experimentation, it's just a first draft, so it's easier to move things around and to move the layers about on Procreate and not have to worry too much about it. So this is the first draft that I ended up on. Like I said, I found it really difficult. I went through many stages and I still feel like it's not really what I wanted. I don't know, I feel like it's getting there. I think an artist's website has to kind of walk a fine line between being basic, so it shows off the art. I don't want the background to be too busy, but at the same time kind of showing off the artistic skills around the art as well, putting a bit of creativity into the creation and design of the website. So this is what I've ended up with today. I've used the colours from the colour palette that I'd selected yesterday. I also I forgot to mention, I went back and I redid some of the fonts. So as you can see underneath the logo, I redid the font that was already in Procreate that I was drawing on top of, that first font that I did, to make it look a little messier, a little more clear, that it wasn't just a staple font, but it was a little more sketchy because I didn't think it was clear enough before. So I went back and redid that, and I also redid the other more playful font as well, and did the numbers for both. So I'm quite happy with how those are looking at the moment. This page is kind of starting to use all these different elements that I'm developing together. I've got the logo, I've got the fonts, I've got the colours. I have realised whilst doing this that I do use a lot of the colours from that colour palette in my art. I feel like it looks very cohesive with the colour palette that I'm using for my website, which I suppose is very important, so the art isn't contrasting too much against the colours around it. That is something that I didn't really think about too much, but luckily it seems to have worked out anyway. Yeah, I think it's looking pretty cohesive at the moment. It's definitely not there completely, but like I said, this is a first draft. I will spend some more time developing this to see how it goes, but I'm pretty happy with what I've got today. We'll see how it goes tomorrow. So I'm going to leave it there today. I'm going to go for a cup of tea somewhere. I'm going to feed my cats because they are running around me waiting to be fed, and so I'll see you tomorrow. Hi, so I've done a quick photo shoot this morning whilst my makeup's fresh. I thought I'd test out to see if I'd prefer having a photograph rather than a piece of art for my profile pictures. I got some feedback last night about my logo, and then I was thinking about it late last night. I don't think it's general enough for everything that I may want to create. I just want to leave options open for my style to expand and evolve without feeling like it doesn't fit under the brands that I've created. So I'll talk a little bit more about the logo later. I'm going to do some new designs, something that isn't so on the nose, something that's a little more general, probably just my name and writing and some fancy lettering, I'll see. But I've just done a photo shoot. I haven't gone for anything over creative because profile pictures are often quite small, so I think the photograph needs to be very clear so people can read it properly and not too detailed or too embellished. So I've just gone with a white background and put my face in many different angles to see if I'll like any of them. So I've done the photo shoot very quickly now. I may come back and redo things once I've started editing the photos and realised that I maybe should try something different, but we'll see. So I'm going to start editing them. I'm going to redesign some new logos, and then depending on what those two things look like, I'll see what else I can develop from there, preferably working on the website a little more, because going back to that, I'm not happy with it. I'm not happy with a lot of the work that I created yesterday, thinking about it last night and waking up this morning to look at it, which is fine. It's part of the process, and I think I have to get used to showing work that I'm not happy with, showing those in-between moments that you wouldn't usually put out onto Instagram or your portfolio or the internet. For now, I'm going to go and test out the photos, edit them a little on Photoshop to see how they look, and then have a go at designing some logos, and I'll talk to you a bit about that later, and then we'll see where we go from there. So it's actually been about a week since the last footage that you just saw, where I was taking photos for a profile picture, and I said that I would talk to you later in the day about how my logo was going, because I was having a change of heart about it. However, it's now been about a week since then, and I've completed everything. The last week was really busy. I was struggling to fit in both working and filming at the same time, Plus, filming can be a little distracting from the actual work that I'm doing sometimes, and so delays the project more than it needs to be when I'm messing around with lights and cameras, etc. So I need to find a balance with that. So I'm not taking too long to film these videos, but I'm having some time to put thought into them too. There was a real midway project struggle, which is kind of where I left you off, where I was getting a bit frustrated with everything. So I just needed some time to focus on what I was doing, make sure that I was doing everything correctly, and I thought maybe this will be a bit better anyway, giving you a bit of a rundown and results at the end of everything that I've ended up doing and decided on now that the project is complete. So I've now finished my website with the new logo, colours, font, the profile pictures used on there as well somewhere. I've also got all my doodles on there that I've been creating, which I don't think I've touched on at all, so we will get to them. I've updated my Instagram, my Etsy, my YouTube channel. So now I thought I would separate all these things, the colours, the logo, the profile picture, etc., and run you through the process of my thoughts and show you the results, and then I'll show you the website, etc. at the end. So let's start with my profile picture. So I'm beginning with the photo or the profile picture because that's where I left you in the last footage, and what you saw was I was doing a photo shoot. It wasn't really professional enough or being done with enough expertise to be called a photo shoot, but I was doing a photo shoot on just a plain background against a white cream wall. I thought that would be less distracting, less complicated, especially for a small scale, as profile pictures are usually only small on your phone or your iPad, so I want them to be clear as to what they are and not hard to read. However, when the photos were cropped, when I started editing them, I thought that they appeared to be pictures from a very boring photography shoot, which is what it was, to be honest. I didn't really think it had any personality, and not one photo worked for me in the end. So at that point I was getting a little frustrated, and just before needing to leave the house I decided to quickly set up my camera and tripod again and to try a quick photo shoot in front of my desk wall instead of a cream wall. So my desk wall at the moment has a lot of pictures and frames on it, and it's something that I'm hoping to change. I might do a video on changing all of my desk space because I'm not happy with how it looks at the moment. But anyway, I thought it had more going on in the background, so I thought that would look more interesting than just the white background that I was doing previously. So I took some photos hoping that the more interesting background won't look cluttered but will look more interesting and give more depth to the photo. But quickly scrolling through the photos, I was feeling a little defeated again because they still weren't really what I wanted, although I wasn't really sure what I wanted, until one of the very last photos that I took where I was being a little silly because I was getting a little frustrated by everything. But I ended up actually quite liking the result of them, even though I didn't really intend for them to be anything. Testing this out as a profile picture, I felt that I think it portrayed what I wanted it to in the end. It wasn't stiff and posed like the others, but it was more like free, more joyful, and when cropped close on the face it's easy to read, so I've ended up removing all background completely from my profile picture, which I think is more effective and a little more unique, especially with the hair framing and taking up most of the space. I don't think I really need any background, and it frames the face well and makes quite a readable, clear image for something that's going to be on a small scale. So yeah, I ended up really liking it. It wasn't really what I thought I was going to like. I thought I was going to want something more posed and more purposefully creative with how I was going to edit it. I was thinking of trying to edit some illustration into the profile picture, which I did try, but it just didn't work. But I think it's a little unique. It's nothing really special, but I quite like it. Hopefully that'll stay as it is for quite a while. Like I said, I want things that I'm creating to have longevity. Not that things will never change, but I think I need these things to be staying with me for long periods of time. And I like this. I don't think it's saying anything too particular. The only thing is that I might get a little bored of seeing my face, but I might just have to get over that a little, especially with doing this. So yeah, I think I can imagine myself having this around for quite a while. I think I'll grow accustomed to it and kind of not notice it after a little while. So I think this fits. So we're going to stick with this, and next we're going to talk about my logo. So logo and font, which it'll come clear why I have put these two together into the same category. So the last time I spoke to you, I said that my next clip, or I was going to talk to you later in the day about my thoughts on the logo, because I thought I had decided on a logo, which was this one, but with some feedback and some good long thinking, I realised that I was prioritising the design over the longevity and the representation of the logo. I think it was way too specific, and I think I'd get bored of it soon. So I'm glad I spoke to someone else for feedback, and I think I was kind of thinking that myself, but I just really liked the design, and that was kind of taking over a little from what it really needed to do what its job was. Some things are okay to be have constant evolution and to be able to experiment all the time with it, but the logo does need to be a strong presence for a longer period of time, or else people won't recognise you. It just creates a familiarity with the people that like your work, so they know what to expect when they come to you, and they can find you more easily if they need to do so by just spotting the image. So anyway, going back to that previous logo that I liked, I decided to scrap all the logos that I drafted on that first sheet of my ideas that I'd done, and decided it was the best to have just my name and no particular image attached to the logo. Therefore, I needed to have a font that was unique to me, which is what I was trying to create anyway, as you saw before. I knew I needed to get my writing done correctly now. Need something that feels a little unique to me, so that when I can use it on my website or throughout my socials, my YouTube, and it'll always feel like it's an extension of my creativity, and it's within my brand and my style, and isn't just a default typography. I think that attention to detail is noticed and looks better as a whole, especially within your website, and helps feel like they're kind of stepping into your world a little more. So I didn't want to do anything too drastic with it. I wanted it to be readable still, but with something a little creative, something a little different perhaps. And I usually like to play with the dot above the I in logos or writing, or in my signature, etc. Sometimes I do some different shapes for that. Because it's a separate entity, it is more easy to kind of manipulate and to play with, because it won't really affect the rest of the writing, so it won't affect the readability of it. So I very simply moved the dot above the I. There must be a proper name for that, I'm not sure, but the little dot above the I moved it from the top of its stick. I don't know. I moved the dot from the top of the eye to underneath the eye. It's not a really original thought or anything like that, but I just thought it was slightly playful, and it would stand out as a unique font. If you're going into a website, you'd notice that there was a difference, obviously, without it being too wacky, too out there, or affecting the font so much, like I said, that you wouldn't be able to read it very easily. So here's the font. I've used this font throughout my website. I'm hoping to use it now into my YouTube videos and wherever I can. If I'm going to do some writing, then this will be what I use. I know I was going to possibly have 2 or 3 fonts that were going to be my fonts. I might try and delve into that at some point, but at the moment I quite like just this font. So I'll see how that goes, and I may add a second one if I feel I need one and it feels like I need something to contrast it sometimes, but at the moment I'm very happy with this font. It feels like me, it feels like it represents my work. It feels kind of vintagey in the typography, has a serious edge to it, but also is a little playful as well with the placement of the eye. So I think in a whole, it represents my work well, and I really like it. So I definitely think I'll be using this for a long time and won't be getting bored of it anytime soon, hopefully. So the logo is very simple. I kind of don't even want to call it a logo because it isn't kind of a well thought graphic designer's image. So I have the font as the base of my logo. I have widened the spaces between the letters and the two words or the two names because it was looking a little cramped before, and I think it looks quite nicely balanced like that. Fortunately, my two names when written out are quite a similar length, so the balance looks quite nice with the two names separated like that. I finished the logo off with a subtle gesture to the creation of typography. So the lines that they would use to balance letter height and spaces between the letters, etc. I'm not sure of the expert terms for that. There's kind of layout lines that help people that are creating new fonts to balance everything out and to make sure that they're the same width and height. I like the handmade look, the kind of behind the scenes peek to the creation of a piece of art or anything creative. It feels like you're peeking behind the scenes into the artist's work a little. So I thought using those lines between the letters made it feel a little more handmade and artsy. And then I finished it off with just a slash between the two names. I just like the look of it, to be honest, which is fine to do something just because you like the look of it. I thought it filled in the gap in between my names. It links to the lines that I have around my letters, like I was just talking about. But I also thought it slightly represented, for me personally, it wouldn't be clear to that, but I thought it kind of represented the fact that I want to try different things. So hopefully it will be correctly representing my creativity going forward. So yeah, that's my logo. I'll show you on my website at the end. And next I'm going to be talking about colours, which will only be quick because I'd kind of already decided on them, haven't I? So colours, hopefully this one will be a quick one to talk through because I did have my mind set on a colour palette straight from the beginning, which you saw on the sheet that I created of all my ideas. They were colours that I'd been using through my art for a while, colours that I always loved within art, and therefore it was kind of easy to select them going forward. And now I kind of can't believe that I never thought of just setting up a colour scheme for things around my art for my website, and it feels like such an obvious thing to do, and maybe I've done it slightly without thinking about it, but now that I know and I'm being really purposeful with how I use the colours, it's so much more effective. So the colours aren't the exact same ones that I had at the beginning of the video, although they're very, very similar. I removed the very, very pale yellowy green and changed that for a very light grey, which is useful as a background colour to bring cohesion to my website. I also use it in a lot of backgrounds for my artwork, especially my more vintagey style works that I like to do. So that's kind of like my base colour that allows me to put brighter colours on top of it without it looking too overloaded or too saturated, because that's just not my style. I like there to be quite a plainness to the background or to the majority of an image, with splashes of bright colours. I also lowered the saturation of both the reds, and so they weren't so blinding. They were a little too much for me personally. They look more harmonious with the rest of the colours now, and that's it. Those are all the changes I made, I think. So these are the colours that I've ended up with. They're the colours that I like to work with and the colours that I like to see within art. I'm glad that I have this colour palette now ready, set to go, to be used, and that I can be more consistent with using those colours in my branding. And I can't tell you how easy it has made it when creating my website and any doodles or my icons, having a palette of colours already ready, set to go, to be used, knowing that the colours will work well together because I already have chosen them to work well together, knowing that they represent me well and the work that I want to do, and also that they achieve the look that I intended and represent my creativity well, represent what I enjoy creating with. Making my website has been simpler. It looks much more cohesive now. I have colours that I use with purpose. The only thing with the website was making sure that I balanced the colours throughout the pages or within one page, so not using too much red in one place or too much green or whatever it was. That was the only thought that I really had to have when creating with the colours, was making sure that I had a nice balance in the way that I liked. And then I could quite easily use them in the icons, the doodles, the fonts, etc. It's made it so much easier having colours selected out. It really means I don't have to do as much brain work throughout any colouring process now. In my branding anyway, within my art, that still takes up a lot of brain space, trying to get nicely balanced colours throughout a painting, but that's another story. So yeah, chosen colours done, and I'll show you how they've worked out on the website at the end as well. We only have one more category to go before I show you the complete results, and that'll be icons and doodles. So let's have a look at that. So, icons and doodles. Icons may seem a bit of a strange place to focus, but they're needed all the time now to advertise other places that you can be found or that your work can be found. And I wanted them to be unique to me rather than just using any defaults on my website editor. It makes it look more creative, which is the whole point of my brand, is that I'm creating things. So that attention to detail there helps to further portray that. Attention to detail, I think, also always looks more creative and a little more professional as well. And then doodles, which you might not know what I really mean by that, but a lot of people, especially if you're using YouTube or on your website, will have the same doodles used in several places when advertising several things or using several different socials, etc., to bring cohesion to all of those things and to make people feel like they're kind of coming into your world when they come and click on your Instagram or onto your YouTube channel. Having a doodle style or a set of doodles will help to do that. So these are things that will take a plain website or a plain video and make it look a little more exciting, a little more creative, and a little more me, hopefully. I trialled and tested some different pens off of Procreate for my icons and doodles to see what would work for me. I was hoping to be able to use perhaps the same pen or similar pens for everything. I knew I wanted something sketchy, very clear cut shapes, although I like shapely things, but having very clear cut shapes, very structured shapes like very perfect squares or circles, etc. wouldn't work for my branding personally. They would look a little too cold against what I'm trying to portray. I wanted something a little more artsy, a little more sketchy, but also shapely and clear to read as well. I ended up really liking the Mercury pen on the inking category in Procreate, and I've used that for everything, for all my icons and for all my doodles, and hopefully we'll use it going forward. And I've used it a lot for other stuff as well, so I knew I already liked it. It has a rough edge, it's painterly, but it looks clear and clean when drawn with. So here are my icons that I did with this pen. Very simple, but they're very shapely and clear and easy to read, but they're also slightly artsy, look a little handmade, which is a kind of theme that I've realised that I'm going for throughout my branding on my website. And they're also, of course, in my colours. I didn't want anything too complicated, like I said, so these work for me and for what I'm going for. So the doodles are in the same Mercury pen as the icons, and with a bit of trial and error I realised that I liked my illustrations on my doodles to be very shapely, but solid colours as well. So not really much line work around them, because I do have a lot of line work within my paintings or my illustrations. They're very line based. So I thought extra line work around them in my website would be too distracting and would look a little cluttered around my already detailed artwork. So I needed something a little more basic, but I wanted to keep the shapely feel that I like, and to obviously use the colours that I've chosen. I wanted them to represent topics that I'm interested in and take elements from within my art as well. So here are a few of the little doodles that I'm using and that I've animated, if that's what you want to call it, that I've used on my website and will be using in my videos hopefully as well. So these aren't the only ones that I do. I think I want to build up on them a little, but for now I really like this set. I have some nature inspired things to represent the nature. I love anything scientific, anything nature, animals, plants, fungi. So I wanted to bring that into some of my doodles like I already do in my art. I also think it kind of brings the kind of prettier side against some of the other kind of more unusual doodles or works that I create, so it creates a nice balance. I also created these speech bubbles that I use on my website for labeling some of the pages or linking to different pages on my website on my homepage, and I quite like them, and I think they'd be nice to use within videos as well. And I think this mixture, I really like this mixture. I think it creates for something quite whimsical, slightly eerie, but also magical, and just kind of incorporates what I'm trying to do, or the vibe that I'm trying to create with my work. Something that I can kind of adapt and add to or take away quite easily as I go. I don't worry too much about the longevity of these. I think some will, like the nature ones, will be more of a base for my doodles that will last longer, and then I can play with other things around that. I like the style of the doodles that I've created, and I think that's the most important part, is using the same pen for a long time, using it in the same way with the clear shapes and the solid colours. So it will be fun to play with doodles throughout my socials, on my YouTube, etc. And obviously again I used the colours from my palette, and now I have a style of doodles and some already pre-prepared doodles that can be used on business cards, throughout my website, on my YouTube. And I can make more when I feel I need to, or I'm inspired to, because I have a style and colours to pull from already, which will make things much easier and much quicker to do. So that's all the categories done. Let's have a look at the results of my website. So the results, I'm going to show you what my website looks like and the way that I've changed my Etsy, my Instagram, etc. So here's what my website looked like before. I did this very quickly, not that long ago actually. I wanted to change things. I had a new style that I'd been building for a little while that I wanted updated on my website, new pieces of work, new jobs that I'd done that I needed to put into my portfolio. So I hadn't put a massive amount of thought into it. I'd put thought into it. I'd tried hard with it, but not having the time that I've spent and the focus that I've spent solely on creating a brand and the different elements of the style of the brand and thinking about what represents me and what will have longevity, etc. I didn't really go into all that thought. I wasn't very business minded with it, and I know that's what I need to start changing, and this is the beginning of it. It just won't be remembered in any way. It won't really have any effect on the people that enter it. I want it to feel like you're entering into my world, into my creativity and my little side of the internet. And I just don't think that really did it. It was just a blank wall for my art to go onto, and I think I understand what I was trying to do, which was to make sure that nothing was really distracting from my work. But I think there is a balance, there is a way to do that, and there are places where you can be create more of effect around your work, and places where your work needs to shine by itself a little more throughout your website. So it was a little too plain for me, and for what I was going for personally. Different things will work for different people and different brands. So here is my new website. I'm really happy with it. I feel like you step into my creativity, like it's its own fantasy world when you enter my website now. The colours and the font feel unique to me, and also harmonise these throughout the whole website, and also links to my socials. I've also changed my profile picture on my Etsy, Instagram and YouTube, and changed the banners for Etsy and YouTube as well, so that they match my website and my branding, and so that everything links together nicely, and so that it feels like it's familiar to me whichever part of the internet you go. I will hopefully be using the doodles and the colours and the fonts in my videos going forward. I'm not sure in what way yet. I think I'll figure that out as I'm going along and editing my videos and seeing what other doodles I might need, or what things I don't need to use, or how to use them, how to use the colours and the fonts, and which way that'll work, so I can adapt a bit as I go, which I think it's good to leave room to adapt. Things don't need to be really strict of how they are. You need to let them flow with you and your creativity. I've really seen the importance of branding in this video. Having a personal touch to your website, to your socials, to just your branding in general, anything around your art, if that is what you're creating or advertising on the internet, and whatever style that is, your branding can be very different to anyone else, which is brilliant if it can be very different to everyone else's. I've realised having correct branding and having that personal touch and feeling like it's your part of the internet will make you more memorable, and then having that in different places around the internet, whether that's on Instagram or on TikTok. I don't have TikTok, but on TikTok or on YouTube or on your website, people will recognise you in those different places when they come across you accidentally, perhaps, when they're going through Instagram reels and they pop up if you're using the same writing or the same logo or the same profile picture. They may not have recognised what you were doing in the video, but they'll know it's you from these other bits, when otherwise they may have just scrolled past because they didn't realise there was nothing to indicate that this was your work. I've also realised that having preset colours and fonts and styles of doodles and just having time and focus to really think all that through makes creating so much easier. It takes the pressure off because I already know what I'm doing and it's one task that's already completed. Ideas will probably happen quicker if I understand what I need to do as well, because I've already done the thinking process for that. So I'm really happy with the results of my website. I'll put links below so you can go have a good look if you want to. I'm going to try and stay more aware of this going forward, trying to be more business minded rather than just creative minded. It doesn't come as easy to me, but I know it's something that I need to take time to learn and to focus on and to do some research on. I think being aware of this now and having more control of it and being more organised with it will allow me to adapt and allow evolution of my style more easily. I'm really happy with the results and I'm definitely going to try and be more aware going forward with my branding and be more organised with the stuff around my artwork and around what I create in general. Thank you for watching today, and I'm guessing this has been one of my longer videos, more chatty videos. Let me know what you think of this kind of video. I like the idea of doing projects and having a longer video where I spend more time discussing the project and developing one thing. So yeah, let me know your thoughts and I'll see you in the next video.